Hey everyone, welcome to Reddistry. If you love wild Reddit stories like crazy cheating tales, spooky scary stories to fall asleep to, or just need something to relax with, you're in the right place. We've got a new Reddit stories compilation for you every week, so make sure to like, comment, and hit that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Let's get into it. First story. The Man. I knew it was a bad idea. Playing around with the dead with spirits, it just wasn't right. I voiced my concern, but no one took me seriously. I've known these girls all my life, yet as we walked through those woods, it was as if I had just met them. The year had been bad, war looming over us, anxiety levels higher. Than ever before, all we wanted was some peace of mind. Knowing that someone was looking out for us so we could focus on living rather than surviving it was a great fantasy, but it wasn't realistic. One thing about my friends is that they are stubborn. If they want something, they will get it, no matter how dangerous it could be. At least, now I understand the people they truly are, and they are no friends of mine. The walk took a while, the sun slowly setting in front of us. The woods were dark, the earth beneath us looking more black than brown, the trees shedding their leaves for the winter. The aesthetics did nothing to ease the anxiety. I didn't really know where we were heading. The only reason I followed was to make sure they were safe, to be the voice of reason. Looking back, I don't know if there was anything I could have done. We reached a small clearing in the woods. The girls stopped walking. We must be at the site. They had read some bogus forum talking about a protector and how to bind one. Even as they were describing this to me, I felt off. Something about this wasn't right. Binding a protector. What were they talking about? I wish I could say I was skeptical at first, but something about the article made it feel a little too real. The way they described the clearing, the spell, how the protector will rise from the earth, it was too fleshed out not to be real. They too saw something in the article, believing it as soon as they read it, no further research required. The next night they were ready. It was as if something was drawing us in, reaching out to us. As we stood in the clearing, I could feel something wrong. The ground beneath our feet was soft, like it was sinking. I didn't like it. A few glances were exchanged, as if asking, "Are we really doing this?" No one said anything. Sadie knelt down. The rest of us followed suit. Knelt down in a circle, they all began to chant the spell the site told them about. Listening to the words leaving our mouths quickly made me realize it was far too late, our English slurring into some ancient-sounding language. The words didn't make sense. It was unlike anything I'd ever heard. It didn't take too long before there was a strange feeling below us, as if the ground was giving way. As the ground began to crumble between us, we got up and ran from the clearing, the girls staying close enough to watch what was happening before them. I have to admit, I had no desire in seeing what came out of that ground. I just wish I kept running. I turned around as my friends gasped, all walking back to the clearing. I froze. What had we done? It wasn't supposed to work. I tentatively walked back towards the clearing, leaving enough space for me to bolt in the other direction. There in the middle was a man knelt down, mirroring the position in which we brought him here. You could tell he was tall. He had to be at least 6 foot taller than my dad. He was strong, had a large build, could easily overpower us all. The thing that worried me most, his face. I was stood mere meters from this man, yet I could not tell you what his face looked like. His features completely indistinguishable, his mouth curled in an unnatural way, and his eyes, they say the eyes are a window to the soul. If they were right about that, then this man was deeply corrupt. He looked around at us, and as he made eye contact with me, I froze. It was a sensation like no other. I could feel pressure in my eyes as I began to cry, but no tears ever fell. It seemed to go on for hours, yet the sun still held its place, peeking out from the horizon. Eventually I managed to blink and look away, the girls helping him stand as they made their way out of the clearing. My friends seemed to be more themselves, talking about school and how to introduce their protector to people. He was walking with them slightly off to the side. If I didn't know better, I would say he looked like he was protecting them, but after looking in those eyes, there could be nothing good to come from this. I kept my distance, walking slower behind them. I felt the urge to run, to get away. However, if I slowed too much, he would stop. He would stop and wait for me to catch up. This annoyed my friends. I feared if I ran, he would only follow. The sun was gone as we arrived home, the moon casting her eerie shadows. My parents were in that house. They had given me everything I'd ever dreamed of, loved me unconditionally, and this is how I repay them, by bringing this man into the house. I felt as though letting this man into my house was sentencing my family to death. No one else seemed to feel the uneasy feeling. My parents liked him, so did my sisters. They said having him around was a good idea. Nobody saw the look he gave me as they said that. It was like he knew I was doubting him. I had to get out of there. I left the room as soon as nobody was watching, twisting down hallways that suddenly felt unfamiliar, as if I didn't grow up in them. I kept going until I found an empty room. I am not sure why I stopped. There was no hiding spaces. I turned to lock the door, only to find it was too late. In the doorway stood the man, his twisted mouth turning up at the corners, his smile unnatural. There was something cold in his eyes as he looked at me. I knew we had not raised a protector. If I had to guess, I fear we raised the devil himself. I tried to back away, only finding a cold wall behind me. He stalked closer, realizing I was trapped. I was easy prey, an easy meal. The closer he got, the stronger he smelled. How had I not realized that before? He smelt of death, decomposing roadkill, one of those smells that chokes you and haunts you for months. I still don't understand where I felt the energy to do this, but I spoke. Who are you? His eyes glistened the way oil does as it mixes with rainwater. Not who, what am I? His voice was worse. Then I imagined cold shivers spread throughout my body. Levels of fear I didn't know a person could reach. I wanted to leave to warn people, but I knew it was over. There was nothing I could do. I could only hope my body satisfied his hunger long enough for my family to run. Second story. My wife has been standing still for hours. My wife has suddenly stopped still, and before she stopped still, we were arguing about finances and about me. She just wasn't happy about the situation with our marriage and everything in general. I became angry, and in the middle of her anger, she stopped still. She still had that angry face, and her body language was still showing signs of anger, but she was still as a statue. Then as I tried to get her to stop messing around, I just went upstairs and tried to cool off and then went out. Then my eldest teenager called me to say that wife is still standing still. I came home to find my wife still standing still, and my eldest was also confused. I tried to calm my daughter down, and it must have been 5 hours at this point that my wife has been standing still. It didn't make sense at all, and I tried annoyingly tell my wife to snap it out. Nothing came back, and I wanted her to shout at me and tell me that I am useless, something isn't right. My eldest daughter started to cry and shout at her mother to stop whatever she was doing. Then I saw a fly land on my wife's shoulder, and it never flew off. Another 5 hours went past, and that fly was still on my wife's shoulders. My wife was still stand still. Then my daughter came down all worried, and she was crying again, and when she touched my wife, she was suddenly standing still. My daughter wanted to hug my wife, but when my daughter's hand touched my wife's shoulders, my daughter is now still. Her face is in the crying motion, and I am bewildered now. I try to shout at my daughter to snap out of it, but she is now like my wife. Now it's my wife, my daughter, and that fly who are standing still. Even their facial motion and bodily movement are standing still. Then when my wife's parents came over, when they touched my wife, they too became standing still. Then when my wife's best friend came over, she touched my daughter's shoulder, and she too became standing still. This was becoming absurd, and I was out of my wind with hardly any idea on what to do. I called over my friend, and he had an idea on what to do. He told me to get out for a couple of minutes, then I heard chainsaw, and my friend chainsawed my daughter's hand. And then my daughter was moving, and as well as my wife's best friend. My daughter was screaming in pain, but her chopped off hand was still attached to my wife.